Hey everybody, Gone is with you today on June the 24th with 191 days left in the year. You're at the Daily Devotional where we get 10 minutes of fun facts, scriptures, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, click a like, share this with a friend. Let's get into it. Psalm 9 verse 2. I will be glad and rejoice in thee. I will sing praise to thy name, O thou most high. For the people reading the Bible in the year, we're into the book of Job, chapter 1 and 2, and Acts chapter 7, verses 22 to 43. Here's the thoughts for the day. A wise man will make haste to forgive because he knows the true value of time. No matter what God gives you today, remember He's preparing you for tomorrow. No matter how tough this day is for you to deal with, it's part of God's training plan. It carries with it a precious lesson. He wants you to learn about Him, about His power, about His love for you, and His gentle yet powerful hand in your life. Even in the worst circumstances, savor them. Seek God's hand in them. Look at what He's doing for you and for you today, and know that He's preparing you to serve Him better tomorrow. Many people think that if they were only in some other place or had some other job, they would be happy. Well, that's doubtful. So get as much out of what you are doing as you can, and don't put off being happy until some future date. There's an old saying that the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, maybe it is, but you still have to mow the lawn. Motivation for today. If there is anything the nonconformist hates worse than the conformist, it's another nonconformist who doesn't conform to the prevailing standard of nonconformity. On this day in history, in 1314, the Battle of Bannockburn takes place near Stirling Castle in Scotland, with Robert the Bruce inflicting a crushing defeat on the English army of Edward II. In 1917, in World War I, there's a mutiny of Russian sailors serving in the Black Fleet at Sevastopol. And in 1948 was the beginning of the Berlin airlift, and the USSR had blockaded Berlin. Of course, it was completely surrounded by East Germany, but through the effort of 1,000 flights and several months, they were able to save Berlin and the people living there. 2010 was the longest match in tennis history, and it took 11 hours and 5 minutes to complete. Here's your personal story for today, and it's all a matter of timing. Many metaphors are used in literature to describe life's shortness. It's a dream, it's a swift runner, a mist, a puff of smoke, a shadow, a gesture in the air, a sentence written in the sand, a bird flying in one window of a house and out another. Another symbolic description was suggested by a friend of Pastor Brad's, who said that there's a short dash between the dates of birth and death on tombstones represents the brief span of one's life. So now many people have said this and experienced it, and they say that when you're children, time loitered. It seemed to take forever, but as we get closer to the end of our life, time moves in increasing swiftness, and I've noticed that more and more the more I have aged. So, guess what? I'm 6.5 is what somebody might have said. Well, how long does it take to get to 7? Wow, that's incredible. So now somebody who's 60.5, nobody ever says they're 60.5. It's just I'm 60 or I'm 59 and holding or 49 and holding or whatever it is. It's good to ponder the pace of life now and then. Life is too short to treat it carelessly. In Psalm 90, after describing the shortness of life, Moses prayed, "Teach us to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom." That's in verse 12. To make the most out of our earthly existence, we must bury ourselves in the will of God. The results are never negative nor regretted. Here's your devotional thoughts for today. Ephesians 5:25. Christ loved the church and gave Himself for it. And that's certainly a reminder that husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church, and He did willingly give it for Him. And the references today are from the Song of Solomon, chapter 8, verses 5 to 9. Well, Jesus taught that being married and being single were both callings from God. Well, some marry, others have been called to be single for the sake of the kingdom of God. Likewise, the Apostle Paul pointed out that single people enjoy certain advantages when it comes to serving God. They have the potential to minister without distractions of married life. The determining factor is a matter of divine purpose for the individual. Paul favored the single life because of his own personal experience. He admitted that each man has his own gift from God. One has this gift and another has that gift in 1 Corinthians 7:7. But he wanted us to come behind in no gifts, so all the gifts are accessible to us. Paul also recognized that one's marital state is also a matter of choice. When he was asked by a group of singles in the Corinth church whether it was appropriate for them to marry, Paul left the decision up to them. You can read that in 1 Corinthians 7. They had the freedom to marry whomever they pleased as long as they married another believer. Be not unevenly yoked with non-believers. That's a key thing. And in the above verses, the bride speaks of a similar freedom. She compares what she has to offer with the vineyard, and Solomon already possesses this vineyard. Just as Solomon had the right to let his vineyard out to tenants, she has the right to give herself to the one that she chooses. The Song of Solomon concludes with her offering herself to the one she loves as a treasure unequaled. Your status in the sight of God. And we are the bride of Christ. And we offer our service to God, waiting for our groom to arrive on that day. And we are in service to him, and we give ourselves up willingly to the one that loves us with an everlasting love. John 7:24 says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." So we are all entitled to our opinions on any given subject. It's a free country, as we often say. But how we apply that opinion is another matter. Just because we have an opinion on something doesn't mean that we have the right to speak that opinion to everyone. An opinion can range from being favorable to unfavorable. As we see quite often, politicians will do that. Let's find out what the poll says on this or the poll says on that. Is it a favorable opinion, unfavorable opinion? Get the focus groups together and figure it out. So it can be encouraging to some, and it might be hurtful to others. Therefore, we need to exercise caution in giving out our opinions. Opinions do not always hold truth because we don't always have any proof to uphold the opinion. But sometimes people judge others by the opinion they have formed just by watching them or hearing things about them. David's brother had a very low opinion of him. When he turned up to the place of the battle of the Philistines, they judged him to be an arrogant and evil for having left his sheep unattended. David saw that nobody else would step up to meet Goliath, the giant who had come against the armies of God. Even Saul said he was too young, just a youth. He wasn't strong enough to come against such a man as Goliath. But not to be outdone, David told Saul about the Lord defending him against the lion and the bear, and how he came out unharmed. So Saul sent him to do what normally would be a man's job. Who else would have gone against this giant had the opinion of David's brothers and Saul stood? Nobody would have. So mind your thoughts when someone in the church stands up to take on the enemy. Let's be encouraging in that. All right? As we've said, take the log out of your own eye. Let's learn and practice the things that we've seen in the Bible. That's what I have today. I've got a couple of fun facts. And if you ever play the game Monopoly, it was invented in 1935. And did you know that the values on the Monopoly game board are the same today as they were in 1935? The pharaohs of ancient Egypt wore garments made of thin threads of beaten gold. Some fabrics had up to 500 gold threads per 1 inch of cloth. Here's your closing thought. A truly wise man will learn from another man's mistake. I've got a couple of jokes for today. So a little boy was afraid of the dark. One night his mother told him to go out in the back porch and bring her the broom. The little boy turned to his mother and said, "Mama, I don't want to go out there. It's dark." But the mother smiled reasonably at her son and said, "You don't have to be afraid of the dark. Jesus is out there. He'll look after you and protect you." The little boy looked at the mother really hard and asked, "Are you sure he's out there?" Yes, I'm sure he's everywhere. He's always out there when you need him, she said. The little boy thought about it for a minute, then went to the back door, cracked it a little bit, peering into the darkness. He said, Jesus, if you're out there, can you hand me the broom? So a magician on a cruise line had a parrot who'd seen the magician's trick a jillion times. Long ago, having figured out the magic behind the magician's disappearing acts, parrot got bored. His owner was growing stale and had not developed any new tricks that the parrot couldn't figure out. One night, in the middle of the magic performance, a ship hit an iceberg and sank. Everyone drowned except for the magician and the parrot. The magician managed to swim to a piece of the wreckage and climb aboard, immediately collapsing from exhaustion. Well, soon after, the parrot flew to the magician, perched on the edge of the makeshift raft, and stared at the magician. Stared and stared and stared. For a whole day, the magician was unconscious. And after all this, the parrot didn't take his eyes off him. Eventually, the magician started to stir. Looking up, he saw the parrot, still eyeing him intently, not even blinking. Another hour goes by, and finally this parrot squawks, "All right, I give up." "What did you do with the ship?" "I got a riddle. This thing all things devours. Birds, beasts, trees, and flowers. Gnaws iron, bites steel, grinds hard stones to meal, slays kings, ruins towns, and beats high mountains down. What am I?" The answer? Time. That's all I got. Thanks for coming. God bless.